Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? I have finished reading the seventh novel of Jack Reacher, and it is called Persuader. I just found out after I finished it that this is the basis for the third season of the show, so they're not at all concerned about following the timeline of the novels, obviously, because book one was season one, book two, or excuse me, season two was book 12, and now season three is book seven. So they clearly have like a series adjacent vision for the show, but they're not looking at that as a hard and fast thing that they have to follow. The premise of this one, again, I'm impressed that while there are the consistent and predictable things about the series, like Reacher finds himself in trouble or embroiled in some kind of crazy plot, and he's generally calm about it, but he uses his skills and his brains and his huge mass to solve the problem, and he'll probably nail a hot chick along the way, and that's just, there's the predictability of it. The variability comes with the uniqueness of the plot. Like, what is he up against that's specifically different or challenging in this one, or what is his objective? What is he trying to save or to make right that's different from previous books? This one starts out with him just kind of being in the right place at the right time, where some bad guys are trying to kidnap a college student, a guy who, as it turns out, has been kidnapped before and is the son of a wealthy man, and therefore has powerful enemies. Reacher is in the right place at the right time to save him and give him a ride home. And then, as the first chapter ends, you realize that this was all a ploy, and Reacher is working with the DEA as an undercover agent to get into the good graces of this target group that they think is trafficking drugs. And the son who Reacher saved had actually been kidnapped and ransomed by a different drug group before. Blah blah blah. All that stuff it was really cool, but it was also really new because no first chapter of the series had been like that up to this point. Like the first book, this one was also written in the first person, so it's the first time that we're getting that for a while. I don't know how many more of them do this. I'll have to get in touch with Brett Kane. I'm sure he knows that. He's got all of these books like memorized. He's read them all several times. He's owned them all with several copies. Like, this is his favorite series, not written by Louis L'Amour. But anyway, Reacher gets himself in the good graces of this crime family, the Beck family, and they live in this old mansion in coastal New England. And he ends up kind of getting hired by their security, and that gives him access to the house and the people within it while he's snooping around and looking for evidence of the drugs and all that they're supposed to be involved in. Now, this is a departure for Reacher's character because he generally doesn't like to get involved in things, and he's not proactive about working with the government. The last several books where this has happened, he's had to be kind of roped and coerced into it, but in this one, he's more than willing to help out because of something from his career as a military policeman. There's a guy who was at the center of a case that Reacher was handling 10 years ago before he got out, who, in the line of his investigation, Reacher ended up having to put 2 bullets in this guy's head, and the guy fell off a cliff and into the ocean, and Reacher figured that was it. That was the end of it. Well, no. Like a week ago, Reacher saw this guy, and he's like, well, that guy's still alive, and he's got 2 bullet scars on his head, but apparently the bullets, which were only 22 caliber, didn't go into his brain. And Reacher's like, if this dude's still alive, that's bad news. He was selling weapons secrets while he was in the Army. Come to find out, he's connected to this Beck family and their crime operation, and Reacher's trying to get to the bottom of all of it. That's about it. Like, I don't want to spoil the plot. I've told you guys kind of what the beats are for a Reacher novel, so from there you can kind of extrapolate the generalities of it. I do feel like physically this particular episode was a bigger challenge for him. Some of the other henchmen were bigger and stronger and were more formidable. Reacher takes a beating, which is nothing new, but it definitely seems, and maybe this is just a consequence of it being written in first person, it definitely seems like the physical challenge was much harder for him, just because you're up close and personal with it. He gets in a fight with a guy who's even bigger than he is, who's all roided out, and takes a beating from it. He falls into a cold ocean in I think it was in April. Coastal New England is not warm that time of year. He almost drowns. He almost freezes to death. It's rough. That first person perspective makes it feel even more visceral and difficult. So I thought that was cool. In considering these books in the context of the series and what they've done so far and what they're doing as they go forward, I get the impression that they really want to keep a strong connection to things that have happened in Reacher's military career. In every one of the books, there are obviously like flashbacks to his military career, but in this one in particular, it's like, oh, here's a case that I handled as an MP that didn't end the way that I thought it did, and now I've got to finish the job. In the second season, which was book 12, so I haven't gotten to that one yet, but I've heard that for the most part, the story beats from the season followed those of the book. It's the same thing. He's got to meet up with his old team of MPs to solve something that's kind of connected to that, just because a whole bunch of members of the team start getting killed off. He's got to get to the bottom of all of that. So it seems like they'll be kind of leaning into that one for the series if they're going to stay consistent with that one. So I'll keep an ear to the ground, or I guess I'll pay closer attention to further Reacher books as I read them to see what other ones are going to have strong connections to cases that he handled as a military policeman for 10 plus years. Because it seems like so far those are the ones that they really want to adapt. The most recent book that I read, I think this was the sixth one, that had him teaming up with the Secret Service to protect the vice president who was getting a lot of death threats. I don't think that that's one that they would tackle or adapt, just because, like, how would you depict the vice president? How would you do that story accurately to the books, et cetera, et cetera? Would you end up picking a diverse female vice president? And then if you do that, then people are automatically going to make connections to Kamala Harris. If you don't, and you pick a vanilla white guy, then people are going to say, oh, are you trying to make a prediction about who Trump might pick for his VP if he gets elected again, blah, blah, blah. If it's so connected to actual politicians or to political offices, then I think that might stray too close to real worldism, and they've shown a reluctance to do that. There was in season 2, there was like a corrupt senator who was at the core of something, but they didn't emphasize, oh, and he was a Republican from this state or whatever. Like, he was a senator on a committee, and he had access to something, and he abused his power, and he was bad. When you deal with the general things instead of getting into the partisanship, you don't divide your audience, which so far in 2 seasons they've been smart enough not to do. It's just, hey, here's a veteran who's also a drifter, and he runs into problems, and he solves them by usually punching them very intelligently in the face. And I can see why this book series had so much appeal over the last 25 plus years, and gave it the notoriety that it needed to get 2 movie adaptations, but now a TV show, and so on and so forth. So I continue to enjoy it. They're generally good. There was a portion of the story where it felt like all of a sudden it started to lag. I would say like into the second act, it's like, okay, now that we know the lay of the land and we know what he's up against, we kind of got stuck in the try fail cycle, or the threaten and analyze cycle, as I like to think of it. Just because, I don't know, like there was a lot of legwork for Reacher to learn very little, or for the plot to advance forward, until it finally got to the punch 'em up action part of the third act that we're accustomed to. As I mentioned, the book was called Persuader. Why is it called that? Persuader was the nickname of a Mossberg shotgun, which, or a particular type, not one specifically, but a type of shotgun that had a relevant role in the story. I won't spoil it beyond that, but that's it. That's my review of Persuader. I'd give it probably 3 stars, just because of how much it slowed down, but it was a good 3 stars. It was exciting enough, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the adaptation of it looks like, to the series. Hopefully it skews closer to season 1 than season 2, just in terms of like general quality and excitement. I still enjoyed season 2 of the show. It was still good. It just wasn't as good as season 1, and there were some moments where it's like the acting could been a little bit better here. The writing kind of lost its pep. Whatever. Those are minor quibbles. I don't run a super detailed TV show critic channel. This is me talking about the books. Anyway, that's it for now. Drive safe. See you out there.